Let me take you to day one, not just the first day on a calendar, but the moment your life begins to shift. Most people believe transformation begins with grand gestures, but that's not the way of the disciplined mind. The truth is more subtle, more difficult, and more profound. It begins with the smallest, most seemingly insignificant choice, how you start your day, not once, but every day repeatedly. Without exception, discipline starts in the quiet, before the world wakes up, before your phone lights up, before the noise begins. What you do in those first 30 minutes, that sacred space between sleep and action, reveals everything about your relationship with yourself. Do you reach for stillness or for stimulation? Are you intentional or are you reactive? Most people roll out of bed and into chaos. But if you want to become unrecognizable in 7 days, you need to meet yourself at the threshold with clarity, with silence, with intention. Shi Heng Yi teaches that the morning is not simply a routine, it is a ritual, a practice of aligning body, breath, and attention. This is not just about productivity, it is about power. Because how you begin shapes how you continue. It creates momentum, or it repeats mediocrity. The Shaolin tradition understands something modern life has forgotten. True strength is built in the invisible moments. When no one is watching, when there's no applause, when it's just you, your breath, and your choices. So, on day one, you begin with breath work. Not complex, simple, deliberate. Conscious inhalation, conscious exhalation, you watch yourself perhaps for the first time. You become aware, not of the world, but of your state. This is the foundation. After that, you move, not to punish the body, but to awaken it. Stretching, flowing, reconnecting the limbs with the mind. You are not a machine that wakes up with a switch. You are a system, physical, emotional, energetic. And when you start the day by realigning that system, everything changes. Your decisions gain weight. Your words carry presence. Your walk reflects authority, not anxiety. There's something very important to understand here. We are not talking about habits. Habits are unconscious. They happen to you. Rituals, on the other hand, happen through you. They require consciousness, participation. This is what makes day one sacred. It invites you to act with dignity, not drift in default. Think about this. If you cannot command the first hour of your day, what makes you think you'll command the rest of your life? If the first thing you do is submit to comfort, to distraction, to laziness, then you have already begun losing before the sun rises, and that loss compounds. But when you win the morning, not with speed, but with the presence, you begin to alter the architecture of your being. This is where the transformation becomes inevitable, not loud, not dramatic, just precise. And precise movements, repeated, become powerful identities. On day one, you are not building muscle. You are not achieving goals. You are building relationship with time, with your mind, with your own nervous system. Most people try to change their life by attacking the symptoms. You're doing something different. You are going to the root. You are becoming the kind of person who meets the day like a warrior monk with stillness, structure, and strength. So, if you do nothing else, do this. Reclaim the beginning of your day. Make it deliberate. Make it unshakable. Because once you win the morning, the rest of life begins to obey. And that, my friend, is the first real victory. Discipline is one of the most misunderstood words in modern life. People hear it and immediately think of restriction, of losing freedom, of being boxed in by routine rules and rigid behavior. But that's not discipline. That's distortion. What Shi Heng Yi teaches, and what many still fail to realize, is that discipline isn't the opposite of freedom. It's the origin of it. Without discipline, your life is no longer your own. You are pulled by urges, habits, fears, distractions, anything that moves louder than your own voice. You become reactive. You live by accident. You operate not by choice, but by default. And what is that, if not the greatest prison? True discipline is the conscious decision to reclaim your life from chaos. It's not about forcing yourself into unnatural rigidity. It's about designing a structure that supports your higher self, not the version of you that wants comfort, but the version that seeks clarity, strength, and depth. And that's not easy, because in a world obsessed with instant gratification, the disciplined person stands out as strange, different, unreasonable. But remember, if you want to become unrecognizable, you must be willing to act in ways the average person won't. This is where the internal shift begins. When you choose discipline, you are not just creating routines, you are creating alignment. Your thoughts, actions, and values begin to match, and when they match, there's no more internal war, no more cognitive dissonance. That's when power becomes available to you. Discipline eliminates negotiation with weakness. You don't waste energy deciding whether you'll train today, meditate today, rise early today. You already decided. That decision was made not by the mood you're in this morning, but by the identity you're building every day. And that kind of consistency rewires your nervous system. It creates mental stability, emotional durability, clarity in chaos. Without discipline, emotions run the show. Stress, anger, laziness, doubt, they become your compass. But when you cultivate discipline, you don't obey every emotional signal. You observe it. You pause. You ask, is this useful? Is this aligned with my purpose? Is this reaction necessary? That ability to pause before responding is a defining characteristic of a disciplined mind. It's not suppression, it's command. This is what Shi Heng Yi means when he says the mind must become the master, not the slave. Without discipline, your mind becomes like a wild horse. Powerful, yes, but directionless, dangerous, exhausting. Discipline is the training, the refinement. It turns that wild force into focused energy. And that kind of energy, it builds empires, it rewrites your destiny. And let's be clear, you will have to sacrifice. Comfort, entertainment, indulgence, approval. These are all easy to crave. But you must ask yourself, do I want to feel good now, or do I want to become someone I deeply respect? Because you can't have both, not all the time. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you could be. And crossing it requires giving up your need to be liked, understood, and comfortable. But once you cross it, something extraordinary happens. You no longer need motivation. You no longer need external permission. You become your own source of momentum. You start to trust yourself because you've proven you can follow through. That kind of trust, it's rare, it's quiet. But it changes everything. So remember this, the disciplined life is not smaller, it's deeper. It's not restrictive, it's refined, it's not cold, it's committed. And if you walk that path for even a short while, you'll realize something profound. What you thought was freedom was just distraction. And what looked like discipline was the doorway to peace. There's something most people never consider when they begin the journey of transformation. Your outer world is a mirror of your inner state. And nowhere is this more obvious than in your environment. The space you live in, the objects you keep, the clutter you ignore, all of it reflects how much clarity, control, and discipline you truly embody. On day 3, the focus turns to your surroundings, not because aesthetics matter in some superficial way, but because environment shapes behavior. Shi Heng Yi reminds us that everything external is an extension of the internal. If your room is chaotic, if your desk is buried under distraction, if your home is filled with objects you neither use nor value, you are living in mental noise. The clutter isn't just physical. It's psychological weight you carry every time you walk through the door. People underestimate how deeply their space influences their state of mind. They try to meditate in disorder. They try to focus while surrounded by temptation. They try to grow while rooted in chaos. But the mind absorbs what it sees. And if what it sees is disorder, the nervous system remains on alert. There is no peace in a room that signals stress, no stillness in a space that vibrates with indecision. Discipline isn't just in your calendar or your thoughts. It's in your physical environment. The very air you breathe changes when you take control of what surrounds you. Cleaning, organizing, and eliminating what no longer serves you is not about being neat. It's a form of psychological alignment. When you choose to create order, you are training your mind to value clarity. When you let go of excess, you're signaling to your subconscious that you're done carrying the past. Every drawer you clean, every item you donate, every surface you clear, it's not about the space. It's about the self that space is reflecting. There is a kind of spiritual discipline in simplicity. In Shaolin tradition, the monastery is sparse for a reason. Not because monks don't deserve comfort, but because every item must serve a function. Every object must belong. Nothing is random. Nothing is there just because. That kind of intentionality sharpens perception, and it translates directly to the way you live your life. Think of it this way. A cluttered space makes decisions harder. It drains your attention, scatters your focus, and lowers your energy. The more you have to step over, avoid, or mentally ignore, the less bandwidth you have for what actually matters. Discipline means reducing that friction. It means choosing simplicity, not because it looks good, but because it frees you to be fully present. You want to become unrecognizable. Start by transforming the space where you spend your time. Let your room reflect the mind you're cultivating. Clean, calm, deliberate. Let your environment become a silent teacher, reminding you of the standards you now live by. Not the standards of comfort or convenience, but of clarity, focus, and intentionality. When you sit in a clean, ordered space, Your breath deepens. Your thoughts slow down. You are no longer reacting to the visual noise around you. You're free to respond to life from a centered place. That's not just decoration. That's alignment. And when your environment begins to support your evolution, something powerful happens. Your identity begins to stabilize. You're no longer pulled back into your old patterns by the objects and energy of your past. You've made space, physically and psychologically, for who you are becoming. So here's the question to reflect on: does your space reflect your highest self or your former self? Because you cannot become new while living in the architecture of the old. Clean the room and you clear the path. One of the most overlooked aspects of self-mastery is emotional control. Not because it isn't important, but because it's uncomfortable. It's easier to justify emotional outbursts than to question their source. It's easier to blame the world for provoking us than to take responsibility for our reactions. But make no mistake, if you cannot control your emotional responses, you are not yet free. By day 4, the work becomes deeply internal. You've structured your mornings. You've taken control of your environment. But now the question arises: what happens when life pushes back? What happens when someone disrespects you? When plans fall apart? When the unexpected interrupts your carefully crafted structure? That's where discipline is truly tested. That's where your training either holds or collapses. Shi Heng Yi teaches that the root of strength lies in calmness. It's not the absence of emotion, but the ability to observe emotion without becoming it. To feel anger without losing clarity. To feel fear without collapsing into avoidance. That's the level of awareness a disciplined life demands. Without that awareness, all the rituals and routines in the world won't matter, because you'll be pulled back into old habits the moment your nervous system is triggered. Emotional control is not suppression. It is not pretending to be calm while seething inside. It's the opposite. It is the practice of presence, the ability to sit with discomfort, to watch it arise, to understand it before responding. Most people are not reacting to the present moment. They are reacting to memories, to wounds, to unprocessed narratives from their past. Discipline allows you to pause that cycle. It gives you space between the stimulus and the response. And in that space, your power returns. Think about it: how much of your energy has been wasted in emotional reactivity, arguments that went nowhere, days ruined by one comment, decisions made in haste that cost you peace, relationships, even opportunities. Emotional impulsiveness is not strength, it is instability disguised as intensity. True strength is the person who can remain still inside while the world outside tries to provoke a storm. And this is not just philosophical, it's neurological. The more you react impulsively, the more you reinforce that pathway in your brain. The more you pause, breathe, and choose your response, the more you train your nervous system to operate from intention, not instinct. You begin to rewire yourself. Over time, things that once triggered you no longer hold the same power. Not because they've changed, but because you have. This transformation is gradual. You won't master it in a single day. But you can start with small victories, noticing when tension rises, breathing before speaking, walking away when your ego wants to fight. These are acts of courage because anyone can raise their voice. Anyone can defend their pride. But to remain unmoved, to respond with clarity when others lose theirs, that requires inner weight. That is the mark of someone who has done the work. By training emotional control, you're not just avoiding conflict. You're building presency. You're cultivating a stillness that others can feel. And from that stillness comes authority. Not the kind that demands obedience, but the kind that inspires respect. Because people sense when they are in the presence of someone who cannot be shaken. And that kind of presence, that quiet, unshakable energy, is what sets the discipline apart from the impulsive. So ask yourself, are you the thermostat or the thermometer? Do you set the emotional climate, or do you simply reflect it? Because if your emotions are dictated by circumstance, you're still in survival mode. But when you respond with awareness, you move from reaction to responsibility. And in that shift, you stop being controlled and start becoming who you were meant to be. By day 5, something begins to shift that is difficult to explain with words alone. The body starts speaking, not in language, but in sensation, intention, fatigue, resistance, and pain. And here, most people make a mistake. They treat discomfort as an enemy. But in the Shaolin tradition, and in any true path of self-mastery, pain is not something to be avoided. It is something to be understood. Shi Heng Yi teaches that the body is a temple, but not in the decorative sense. It is sacred because it is the medium through which all discipline is lived. Without the body, there is no practice, no breath, no movement, no endurance. And so, The relationship you have with your physical self reveals everything about how you engage with life. Do you listen to the body or do you escape it? Do you strengthen it or do you numb it? Pain in this context is not punishment. It is a signal, a teacher, a threshold. When your muscles begin to shake during a long stance, when your breath shortens during intense training, when your shoulders ache from maintaining posture, that's the edge of your current capacity. And right there at that edge is where transformation waits. Not before it, not after it. Hey, right there, you see, modern life has made it easy to avoid physical discomfort. We sit more than we move. We reach for convenience over effort. And in doing so, we dull the instrument of the body. But discipline is physical. It must be practiced through repetition, through tension, through deliberate effort. There is no shortcut around this. You must meet yourself in the resistance, because that resistance is the fire that burns away the weakness. There is something profoundly spiritual about intentional physical challenge. When you choose to enter discomfort through training movement, through stillness, you reprogram the nervous system. You begin to shift your relationship with struggle. No longer does it signal danger, it becomes familiar, even welcomed. You stop flinching in the face of difficulty because your body has learned to stay calm within it. This is not about becoming a machine. This is about becoming a fully human. The body carries emotional memory. The hips hold tension. The spine reflects stress. The breath shortens under pressure. When you train the body, you are also releasing trapped emotion. You are creating coherence between the physical and the emotional. That's why movement is not just physical hygiene. It is emotional healing. Discipline in the physical domain teaches something crucial, that you can endure more than you think. That the limits you feel are often thresholds of belief, not biology. And when you push slightly beyond them, with awareness, not ego, you build trust. You trust that your body won't betray you. You trust that your mind won't quit the moment it gets hard. And most importantly, you begin to trust you yourself. There will be soreness. There will be fatigue. But there is also power in that. Because every time you finish a session you didn't want to begin, every time you hold a posture longer than comfort allows, every time you train when no one is watching, you are proving something to yourself, that you are not ruled by mood, but by mission. And what emerges from this consistent practice is not just strength, but presence. People can feel when you've done the physical work. Your posture changes. Your energy shifts. You walk differently. You speak with grounded authority, not because of how you look, but because of what you've endured. You carry the proof of discipline in your body. So don't run from the discomfort. Meet it. Breathe into it. Let it shape you. Because the version of you that exists on the other side of pain, that version is stronger, quieter, and far more prepared for anything life brings. By the time you reach day 7, something subtle yet profound has begun to take place. You look in the mirror and the changes aren't just physical. Your face holds a different tension. Your eyes carry something still. Your posture has weight behind it. Not from muscle, but from presence. You haven't just added discipline to your life. You've removed who you used to be. That's the truth people don't often say out loud. Discipline doesn't just build a new self. It requires the death of the old one. Not in a dramatic or violent sense, but in a quiet, intentional, and repeated refusal to return to who you once were. And make no mistake, that old version of you will try to return. It will whisper in moments of exhaustion, in the gaps of silence, in the subtle pull toward comfort. It will say, "This is too much. You've done enough." But that's when you'll know you're right on the edge of becoming unrecognizable. Shi Heng Yi often speaks of transformation not as an event, but as a continuous unfolding, a revealing. What discipline does over time is strip away everything that is not essential. The excuses, the self-doubt, the inconsistent behavior, the reactive tendencies. What's left is not someone you knew, but someone true, someone who was always there, buried beneath his of compromise. And here's where we come full circle. Everything you've practiced. The morning rituals, the emotional regulation, the training of the body, the cleansing of your space, all of it has been preparing you for this final realization. You are no longer chasing change. You are embodying it. You've stopped seeking motivation because now you operate from identity. This is who you are, what you do. This internal shift is subtle, but it's unmistakable. You no longer make decisions based on how you feel in the moment. You make decisions based on who you've committed to being. That alone changes everything. It creates a psychological solidity that cannot be faked, and the world responds to that solidity. People notice, opportunities align, not because you're forcing outcomes, but because your internal world is finally coherent. But this shift comes with responsibility. You now hold a standard. And with that comes the awareness that you can no longer return to your former ways of thinking, living, or reacting, not without consequences. Because once you've tasted clarity, a chaos feels unbearable. Once you've experienced presence, distraction feels violent. And once you've known strength, weakness can no longer be romanticized. This doesn't mean you won't have moments of struggle. You will. But now you face them differently. You've built a foundation, and foundations don't panic. They hold. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to inspire without trying, not because you're preaching or performing, but because your being reflects discipline. Your actions speak so consistently that your very presence becomes a message, a reminder to others that they too can evolve, that they don't need to stay where they are, that the old self is not a sentence, it's just a starting point. 7 days of discipline is not the end. It's the initiation. It's the moment you realize the person you used to be no longer has authority over the person you're becoming. And from here forward, every step you take, every breath, every decision, every response can be rooted in that new identity. So reflect on this. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you without the noise, the past, the patterns? That's the self-discipline uncovers. And once you meet that self, don't let them go. Because the most powerful transformation is not becoming someone else like you to bed. It's remembering who you were before the world told you to forget.